Bigger than capes.
Gilly's from outside.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it, and then I watched it.
Right.
Hello, welcome to Bigger Than Capes, Episode 1. I'm Zach, your host, and this week I am joined by all of our other hosts. So first up, Will. What's happening?
Hello, how's it going?
So, can't complain, new things.
Yeah, living the dream, as always.
Good. Next up we have Angela.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing? How's things?
Good? I'm surviving, yes. Surviving. There we go.
It's all we can ask. And the new days of a new year in a new
mess.
Completely the same place, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, in a new podcast.
In a new podcast in a new year. And to round off our awkward hellos, hi, Matt.
Hey, Zach. How you doing? Again.
I'm still fine. How about you?
Also, still fine. I'm good. And by still, I mean we're totally new. We've never spoken on audio before.
That's right. This is the beginning of all of our audio.
Yes. I never... Wait, we've never met before, have we? So, like, volunteer, I'm pulling from the audience.
I don't believe we have. I like to think that, Matt, you've got a wonderfully bad magic act in you.
I mean,
pressure.
My granddad used to do a magic act at Christmas every year. That was until he set fire to the table one year.
I mean, it's part of all great magic acts, isn't it?
Yeah. Unintended fire.
Yeah.
Should we tell the lovely listeners what our comic book podcast is about? Oh, I've given the game away. It's a comic book podcast.
About comic books.
There's going to be some jeopardy there, but alas.
Yeah, spoilers. It's a comic book podcast about comics. If that's not what you're here for,
we've got magic tricks and fires.
Yeah, we've got offbeat comedy and weird anecdotes. Although there might be no comedy.
But plenty of weird anecdotes.
Oh, loads of those. So yeah, in essence, we're going to be a indie-focused comic book podcast, and by indie we basically just mean everything that isn't Marvel and DC, as far as I've narrowed it down.
In a rough nutshell.
Although I like to think we'll make exceptions just to screw with people, right?
I mean, there are some crossovers. Particularly with DC muscling in on some other properties that I wouldn't mind having a read of, but we'll see.
I think there is an inevitable, Batman Transformers is probably in the not so distant future. I imagine that's in the works if it hasn't happened already, or
Yeah, I'll be buying that.
I might
pre-ordered it.
I might just suggest a bunch of comics that don't exist, and we'll look back in a year's time and see how many IDW and DC have made.
Maybe we should do that. We'll all put a crossover in an envelope. And then in 12 months' time, we'll look at it and we'll see if our crossovers were right.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a really good idea. Let's definitely do that.
We could do a series of predictions for the year of comics. Which companies go bust.
Yeah.
Who gets the biggest slice of the non-Marvel and DC pie.
Image.
I mean, yeah, it's probably
it's gonna be top shelf finally.
I got a good feeling this is
gonna
their
have
year.
a hell of a year.
First, second is gonna be the Kings. Slave labor graphics is coming back.
Oh, Matt, this is Devil Jews first. This is their year. Man, there's a lot of publishers when you think about it. And
Kitchen Sink Press.
I think every day where I stumble across a new comics publisher on Comixology is it's just basically every day, actually. It's nothing else. It's just
That's a common occurrence.
That is my life.
Is anybody else, have they got any excitement for Rob Liefeld relaunching Archie's, is it Red Circle line?
Oh, they're trying that again.
Oh, yeah. This
Yeah,
time with Rob Liefeld.
I thought they relaunched about 5 or 6 years ago.
They did.
I believe
Okay.
they did. It lasted a minute.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed seeing Liefeld pop up of late, though. He's had some funny things to say about his odd little life.
It's like the ghost of Christmas past.
I kind of feel, I've got the impression that after his last stint, I think he's just not welcome at Marvel anymore.
What was the last thing he did? Was it Major X or something like that?
Major X, and
Was that last
I
year?
think so. But yeah, not there so much no more.
I'm kind of constantly curious about Rob Liefeld. I know this is something that me and Will have talked about. Basically, when any one of us brings him to the table in a conversation, that I'm kind of always curious about him because he's created characters I really like. But I've never seen the proof that he's done the best run of those characters. I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but
No, that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the hallmark is that when somebody takes over one of his characters and makes a book, despite the fact that the name is the same and they look similar, there is almost nothing about Rob Liefeld in any of the future works, and that's what makes them really good.
perhaps.
They take very much the overcoating and then just make something entirely different, and that works for me.
I mean, I think it's very similar. I know we're all Valiant Comics fans, and I think that's very true between the 90s and the 2012 rendition, where kind of they took the names and went, oh, absolutely not the ideas. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, they took the core premises.
But yes, the core premises, yeah.
For some things, and then for others.
Some things. They didn't touch the Acclaim stuff, thank God.
Not yet.
Not yet, don't.
I'm waiting for a remake of the HD remake of the Iron Man Exo Man Award Game Boy Advance game.
Oh, Jesus Christ, no.
Waiting for that bad boy.
Was that called Heavy Metal or something?
I think it was called Heavy Metal.
Really stupid
Iron Man tick, Exo tick, Heavy Metal tick.
Oh,
just good choices all around that, really, isn't it?
Just good stuff.
Choices.
I like to think we've already done an incredible job of alienating our audience.
Welcome.
Hooray.
You're not welcome here.
You sat through that. Thank you.
If you've made it this far, thank you. This was intended to be a little introduction to ourselves, and we've immediately gone off the rails here, I think.
Which
Which
is probably
again,
the
I
best
think is quite
introduction
good
to ourselves.
introduction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
that's
who we are.
It's the most
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So, how has everybody been over the Christmas holiday festive period? You been reading any comics? You been getting up to any comic themed stuff? I don't know what that would entail.
Just
I don't know what that
individual
is.
cosplay. I just got all dressed up like Optimus Prime. Then I took it off. It was grand. Good times.
There's no shame in it. We've all been there.
I probably had as good a Christmas as one could expect in 2020. It was just me and the other half. Pretty quiet, but watched some crappy films. Wore a beautiful KFC Christmas jumper that I got.
I'm listening.
And yeah, Christmas in 2020 didn't do much, and it was nice.
I pretty much agree. Yeah, that Christmas jumper aside, very much reflects my Christmas experience, and I stand by it. It's been all right.
I'm just trying to think. I know I didn't wear a KFC themed Christmas jumper, but I'd say otherwise that's a reasonably accurate description. I ate a decent amount of food. By decent amount I mean more than I should have eaten. had some nice like chocolates, watched some bad films, watched some good films. Like I spent my bank holiday watching some Werner Herzog films, like Fitzcarraldo and stuff. I also was given as a present by a very dear friend of mine the movie Money Plane on DVD, which I only wanted just because I wanted to see Kelsey Grammer's performance in it.
Yeah, I'm sold. I'm on board. I'm on board the Money Plane.
Yeah, so like that. Getting to spend time with at my parents, because living the one benefit of living on my own means that I can bubble with immediate family. So getting to go over there for Christmas dinner was nice. Yeah. How about you, Angela?
Cool.
I had chaos in my house. It was just me and my mum, but we had to cook for my elderly grandparents and an elderly neighbour. So it was like a blooming restaurant kitchen on Christmas Day. It was one of the most stressful things I've ever done.
That's usually my Christmas Day. Like my dad and I will go and spend about 6 or 7 hours in the kitchen on Christmas Day, and then about 8 hours in the kitchen on Boxing Day.
Yeah. So it wasn't so relaxing, but I did get to watch some of the Star Wars prequels because that's what I do at Christmas. That's my Christmas tradition. So I've managed to do that.
Weirdly enough, I think because of how much I enjoyed The Mandalorian, I've been really kind of like jazzed up about Star Wars again recently. And I too sat down and watched the prequels.
There you go.
And my Star Wars jazz is mellowed.
It's frustrating because there are good films trying to get out of there. There are genuinely good ideas in there.
Yeah, I mean, genuinely two minds about them. There's the nostalgia part of the only Star Wars film. Well, not the only ones, more have come out since, but the first Star Wars films that came out in our lifetime. And there are bits, like pod racing's cool, having more than one Jedi in a film is cool.
Yeah.
Actually, like Revenge of the Sith isn't bad. It's probably the best of the three.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah,
I'm not sure.
Controversial.
I feel like Phantom Menace could be the best.
Phantom Menace has the best lightsaber fight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
True.
And not just in the prequels, just in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Probably.
Agreed.
So
I wonder if we all agree on which fight.
But which one is it? Duel of the Fates, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I do get upset when they just slice through all those poor little battle droids. I don't know why. It upset me in '99. It's upsetting me now.
Again, like from a design perspective, loads of things look really cool, like the battle droids, particularly the ones that roll and then sort of like pop out.
Oh yeah.
They're just a super cool design. So from that kind of point of view, there's a lot about the prequels to like. But
and to be fair, the prequels are responsible for the best piece of Star Wars media, which is the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars.
I really thought you were going to say the Obi-Wan Game Boy Color game then.
You thought it was the N64 pod racing game.
Matt, with you, they're all valid options.
Or the Star Wars fighting game on the PlayStation 1. Masters of Terraskasi, which is terrible.
Oh man, the past.
But the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars is incredible.
I'll give you that. On this one occasion, I will allow that maybe Matt's right.
We'll see. Time will tell.
We'll note that down.
We'll get like a tally board of times we admit Matt's right. I say board. We'll get a post-it note.
It's not have to be very big.
So, with that being said, shall we get on to our...
We should really, yeah.
Somewhat introduction of ourselves.
Yeah.
So, in essence, we have all picked a first trade, in theory, of a series that...
You're just trying to jab at me by saying that.
Who would jab at you, Matt? I mean, you just chose an entire series that only saw a trade and a half.
Barely a half.
A third.
A trade that I'm...
It's about a half.
To be fair, each issue is about 35 pages, so technically, it's definitely two trades.
Yeah, big old issues.
However, the book Matt has picked is, the kind of book that collected edition, even digitally, I can only find in French. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Right, to be fair, it's not hard to get physically. It got reissued. It got reprinted a while back.
Should we allow Matt to be the first book?
No, please.
Okay, so we've all picked the first trade of a book that we quite like. In theory, that book will say a lot about who we are as comic book fans and readers. However, in a perhaps flawed mechanism, we have all picked books from about the last 10 years that were released by Image Comics. So interpret that as you will.
To be fair, we're also generally stuck with what's available currently digitally, as we're not able to meet up.
Yes, we can't trades between us or whatnot. So yeah, we are a little bit limited.
I assume when this is heard by the greater populace, we will get sponsorship deals from both KFC and Image.
If they know what's good for them, I'm also willing to throw in that we can be more positive about Rob Liefeld if that's what you need. And if that appeals to Image as well as KFC, great.
I'm big fans at KFC.
Yeah, if KFC want to send Zach one of those new KFC computers that have got the compartment for fried chicken in the bottom.
Wait, is this real?
Yes, it's and it's the dumbest thing in the world.
Yeah, KFC have made a games console.
Well, no, it's a games console. A PC manufacturer basically has come to them and said, "Hey, we've got these bits. Do you want to slap your logo on them, and we'll put in a drawer for chicken?"
Seriously, hit me up. I'm interested.
If you're listening, KFC.
You know what? I had KFC yesterday. It's been a pretty good weekend because of it. I
can say I've never had KFC.
Oh, mate, you're missing out, bruv.
Even before I was vegetarian.
I'm sad to say that around about a year ago today, I was in Osaka with all you can eat KFC, and basically the last 12 months have been in a major decline since that point.
That's a beautiful dream.
You've been chasing after that high ever since.
Been chasing the all you can eat original recipe ever since, yeah. One of these days I'll get back there.
Right, let's talk some comics.
Oh, do we have to?
On a comic book podcast?
About comic books we care about.
Kentucky Fried Comics.
Yeah, Will, what was your favourite comic that was brought to us by the Colonel?
So, my favourite Colonel comic, the comic that I have brought for you today, boys and girls, is Paper Girls, released by Image Comics, no doubt, written by Brian K. Vaughan, art by Cliff Chiang, and colours by Matt Wilson. Elevator pitch. It's the story of a group of paper girls, no less, paper delivery girls, set in a fictional town in Cleveland, who their town, while they're delivering papers, is hit by an invasion of mysterious people from the future, and the girls are kind of caught up in the crossfire between two warring factions of time travelers.
And hilarity ensues.
Hilarity ensues. I kind of came to this book through Brian K. Vaughan, from reading obviously Saga, which I think a lot of people have heard of, and Why the Last Man. Mm-hmm. So when this first started coming out, it was kind of an obvious jump on for me. But what is in Paper Girls is better than I sort of could have imagined, I think.
Yeah.
The story ticks all of my boxes. So it's set partly in the 80s, but because it's about time travel, obviously we jump about all over the place. I'm not really a child of the 80s. I'm a child of the 90s, but there's a big section at the 99-2000 New Year celebrations. I was alive then, and I remember that. Cliff Chiang's art is superb. It's kind of got a slight pop arty vibe to it, where the colouring by Matt Wilson again is quite simple. Is not the right word for it, but it's very kind of clean colouring, often quite like large block colours, but that's also backed up by some incredible sort of background detail in like vistas of future cities or in like ancient jungles or wherever they end up.
I think that is a pretty glorious summation of Paper Girls.
Yeah.
I think I'm willing to go as far as to say this is my favourite Brian K. Vaughan book. So,
yeah,
good choice, Will.
One of the things that I quite often go in for, particularly with Brian K. Vaughan, is his ability to make you sad. He's real good at like delivering you a character that you learn to love, and then just whipping it away from you real quick. But Paper Girls, despite having its moments of melancholy, is a relatively kind of positive book, I think, particularly for Brian. I call him his first name because it was me and Bry guy, Mr. Vaughan. Is relatively positive for his style of comics writing, and it's one of those few comics that really sticks the landing. Like, I think the end is really satisfying and collects up all of the pieces. It's a lovely kind of 5-volume. Was it 30 issues? I think. Like, it's a decent chunk of story.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty great throughout. Like, I'm not sure there are any real weak spots in it that I can think of.
Yeah, it's one of those books that I really do want to kind of... I read the first volume when it came out, and I've been meaning to kind of follow up on it ever since. Like, because I loved what I read. Like, it has this sort of great feeling of, like, youth fighting against tradition and kind of structures, trying to hold them in place. And it really kind of spoke to me when I read it, and then I just kind of failed.
We live in a world where they're just pumping out new books constantly, and some things just get left to the wayside, don't they? But this was the one that when it was coming out, like I was avidly watching for every kind of next release and jumping on that, because I was really into this.
I completely agree. I think this is a book that was really easy to keep up with, and I think the fact that it was only 6.
Oh yeah, Zach.
5.
Rub salt in the wound there.
I mean, shut up, Matt. I mean, I think the fact that there was only 6 volumes as well is a really positive thing. I think it's nice when things conclude.
Yeah, like he had a story to tell and told that story, and I think I would rather have something like this, because I absolutely enjoy going back and having rereads of this. that if I had something that was like 14 trades long or, hundreds of issues, I think you'd think twice before diving back into it. But something that's 30 issues, maybe once a year, once every like 18 months, I just think I'll pick that up and have a reread, and I'd much rather have that than just unmanageable epic, I suppose.
Yeah, I think, especially when Vaughan's got Saga on the go, and he threatened that he's not even halfway through Saga at the moment. So I feel like Saga's the kind of thing that you might never reread.
No.
It will never end.
The only reason I might never reread it is because I don't own any of it in trade. It's the only book I've ever kept up reading in singles in years. And making sure to sort them properly. Is too much.
It's a lot of effort.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Saga as well. Like, I'm very much looking forward to its return. And Brian K. Vaughan is one of those people I will always check out kind of what he does.
Yeah.
Not everything has been 100% success for me, but I will always have a look because there's always a potential of it being superb.
Definitely.
French for
you. When he was first coming back to comics with Saga, I was so excited. Just like I was there, like as soon as I could buy the first issue, because just like the concept that he was going to be making something new, and with Staples on that was like, oh yeah, okay, so that's a book I actually have to buy, and I've kind of had that same feeling to a greater or lesser extent with almost everything he's put out since. And Paper Girls is the one that's really felt rewarding in that regard, other than Saga. And like it might be a stronger first trade than Saga for sure.
Yeah. I would say it is in a lot of ways, because Saga, I think I got to the end of the first volume and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go read some more. Whereas I got to the end of Paper Girls, I was like, oh, I should really check out the next one. There was more of an impetus. I don't know whether it was the characters, just because I prefer the Paper Girls characters. The characters of, Saga fans.
Sorry, no, you go, Matt.
I was going to say, like, for me, like, Saga has the strength of just kind of being this strange hodgepodge of, like, every kind of fantasy and sci-fi trope thrown into a blender, and kind of, like, and watch them all kind of interact with each other, which appeals to me as someone who's consumed far too much of like every genre that it's kind of working with, and every sort of subgenre of it. So that world works for me really well. But I really like the kind of energy that Paper Girls has going with it in its opening, and like I like I like girl gang movies and stuff, and like just it's a girl gang comic at the start, and that's cool as hell.
But it's got that vibe of those sort of 80s sort of kids adventure films.
Yeah.
It's much more like referential as well. There are references to sort of D&D, to Apple, the company. There are just like odd references that partially help to kind of put you in a timeline. You know, like the D&D bits first appear in the 80s, and then the Apple bits first appear when you start seeing some of the future stuff. But he kind of uses those kind of brands to, it keeps it tied to our reality, like the real world, but still has that kind of fancy adventure.
Is it just me or is Brian K. Vaughan really, really into Apple? Not just in this. It's in other things. Like it's in Private Eye has a fair few Apple references, and I don't know. Is this just a Brian K. Vaughan thing? Is he just chasing that sweet sponsorship? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, has he got secret Apple sponsorship?
Is there anything in Ex Machina?
Not that I can immediately think of, but I bet there is.
Pride of Baghdad.
There's this definite moment where there is a lion sending a text. I'm pretty sure he does it on
and it says sent from my iPhone.
Yeah, I remember a hippo wearing Google Glass as well.
Damn. There's also one of my favorite things in Volume 1 of Paper Girls is there is a bit where we see, is it grandfather?
Yeah.
Answering a phone that is built from an apple with an eye in it, and yes.
He either loves them or hates them because they do seem to represent the man.
Yeah, I just can't tell which it is, and maybe we'll never know.
Yeah. But I think that's something about this as well, is that throughout the book, different people are the heroes and the villains. He's very good at twisting a character's motivations or how you see them as the reader. And sometimes people who you've really loved do something that is quite disappointing. And then sometimes characters who at this point have been a villain or a menace suddenly do something you think, oh, okay, they're not complete bastards.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of twists to everything that there can be a twist to. And
yeah.
I do feel like it is more organic than some of the twists in, to use it as a constant example, Saga.
Yeah.
yeah. But it's sci-fi, it's time travel, it looks incredible. It just ticks all of my comic boxes for Paper Girls. That's why it's my choice. Thank you for
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Before we move on, what were the other books that you almost chose? I think we should ask everyone.
Okay, yeah, not a bad shout.
This,
I thought about Black Science. Again, we're talking sci-fi, but now we're talking interdimensional. Think Sliders, but with cooler helmets.
Completely different from time travel is dimension travel.
Yep. Astro City. It was hard not to pick Astro City because that is probably the best superhero book.
Astro City is very good.
Yeah.
Black Hammer. I like alternative superheroes. That was my other main vein. It's sci-fi or it's alternate superheroes or cool fantasy. That's my.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
7 to Eternity could have come in there. I'm also a big Rick Remender boy.
Yeah. So who wants to go next?
I guess I can if I have to.
Thanks, Zach.
I just know Matt will do anything to avoid being anything but last.
Attention.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, I'll go third.
Ooh.
Controversial. Don't know what the tone was with that, but I stand by it. So, my choice was Chew by John Layman, writer, and Rob Guillory, arter. And we're under the impression it began in 2009.
Yep, my trade says it did.
And of course, Matt's trade is gospel. So, what is Chew, I hear you asked, your listening device, and looking like a maniac in the street. So Chew follows the adventures of Tony Chew. And Tony Chew is Sebopathic. We settled on Sebopathic? Cybopathic?
Yeah.
Sebo?
Sebo.
Sebopathic. And that means he can take a bite of an apple and get a feeling in his head about what tree it grew from, what pesticides were used on the crop, and when it was harvested. Or he could eat a hamburger and flash onto something else entirely.
Wow, Zach, it's almost like you had that, you were reading that from a script.
Or a comic book.
Why would you say that? I'm just doing the best job I can do. However, for some reason, he doesn't get any psychic impression from beats, just like the rest of us. But there's more to it than just Chew eating things and thinking stuff. So Tony ends up working for the FDA, who basically crack down on food-related crimes. But why, I hear you ask? Your phone.
Why is that?
In the street. Basically, because there was a bird flu that killed 23 million Americans, or 116 million people worldwide, which I guess is the real number that matters. But hey, that's not the one you put on your monument, is it, America? Well, that got
That went dark.
which basically led to the FDA and the American government outlawing chicken. So you can't eat chicken because what if it kills you? And the FDA try and stop you eating chicken and investigate other food-based crime. And that's basically the premise of Chew. Tony eats stuff to solve crimes, and crimes involve food and having to eat food and eat people to solve crimes. And that is Chew.
As the official KFC spokesperson, I want to say that we stand strongly against the illegalization of chicken.
As the resident vegetarian,
Very pro it.
I am very pro. My God, criminalizing like chicken farming.
But if I was to like kill
For
and
meat,
fry a
for
wild
meat.
chicken,
Oh yeah, those wild chickens.
They're everywhere. There's wild chickens.
The wild chickens of the woods.
Yeah, you can't just you can't most dangerous games some chickens and claim they're wild by just releasing them into the forest and hunting them over a course of a few days.
does one need to hunt a chicken, or does one just simply need to find a chicken and go, "Oh, sweet chicken," and just pick it up?
Does one hunt a chicken, or does a chicken hunt one?
So, oh
So
man!
why did you pick this chicken hating book, Sam?
Thank you for saving us from ourselves, Angela. So basically, my thoughts on Chew are that this is one of the first image books I remember reading, and I stand by it.
Yeah.
It seemed weird as hell at the time, and I think that's what attracts you to it, is that when you read the description and it's, bird flu, outlawed chicken speakeasies, FDA cracking down on people eating chicken, and food-based superpowers. It's the kind of just absurd enough to make good sense book that appealed to me. I think it's consistently ridiculous, consistently funny, and I think it just spoke to me on the fact that at the time I was into a lot of DC. It was a dark time in my life, obviously, I was being threatened with a reboot of everything I knew and loved, and I think it just came along at a time when I was reading a lot of DC and a lot of superhero books, and it was absolutely none of that.
Yeah.
Although it does involve a lot of superpowers and superpowered crime, but shut up.
Yeah, it came out at a similar sort of time for me in terms of I'd read my fair share of indie books, and I'd read a lot of indie books and stuff, but Chew was the right kind of weird.
Yeah.
When it came out, and it wasn't afraid of its premise.
I completely agree, and I think that's a huge appeal. I think there's a lot of mid-thousands indie books that are a little bit shy about what they're trying to do at times. It isn't afraid to take what it's actually it isn't afraid to take its premise and push it to the limits. And whilst I think that isn't necessarily as it goes on, sort of later on, it maybe goes a little bit sort of too wacky in some ways for me, kind of towards the
last third, maybe.
Okay. I can see that.
I still, I still own it all, and I've read and reread it.
I would just like the record to show that Matt has acknowledged that something is too wacky for him, and
it's not okay. It's not exactly. It's like where it focuses its wackiness, I guess.
Wacky in all the wrong places.
Because I think we have the same sort of favorite part of Chew, Zach.
I think that is fair. I know we both have a thing for.
Yeah,
I think it's volume 5.
Well, it's volume 5 or volume 4. I'm literally sat right by my my volumes of it.
No, don't check. Go on the gut feel. It is the baseball one.
It's volume 5. It's great. It's just without any other spoilers to it. It's a volume that majorly kind of shakes up the core premise. Tony stops working for the FDA and instead becomes a traffic cop, and for the first time in the book is actually happy.
Yeah.
And then kind of what it decides to do with his superpathy is that he gets kidnapped to be auctioned off to eat, to eat the body parts of anyone who the bidder wants. So you have the Aryan nation trying to get him to eat Hitler. You have Elvis. Elvis fans wanting to find out if Elvis is dead or not because he'll know what Elvis knows if he eats him. People wanting to know all these secrets and find out. Someone wanting to write an autobiography, biography of all these baseball players. So they're just going to feed him a line of baseball players. So that he can tell them all about their lives and stuff. It goes to some great places like that, and that is it's a very funny, clever book.
Yeah,
but that's fueled around that premise of food. There's some real smart ways with it. There's kind of the obvious sort of lower class crimes of just smuggling chicken.
Yeah,
and then you have the very rich diners who are eating things that are almost extinct,
or long extinct,
long extinct. When is it a saber-toothed tiger or a mammoth?
Saber-toothed tiger or a mammoth or something like that. Yeah,
it was definitely one of the original Power Rangers Zords. That's
that's how we class animals. Is what series of Power Rangers were they Zoids in?
It's an important way to class things, You ever tried to eat a train? It's a terrible series.
New David Attenborough show. Who's spotting Zords in the wild.
Yeah.
But I think because of how bizarre it is, it really did appeal to me. It also makes constant references to Tarantino, Lost, and CSI.
Yeah.
And I think as a teenager that was into all of those things, it just, I don't know, just seemed like it was speaking to me.
Also, the backgrounds are always just constantly covered with weird little jokes.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I have then missed in many books since, and I'm always expecting if someone's put detail into background it to matter or be a joke or be something, and sometimes it's just words, man.
Yeah, it's like we were saying when we were talking in the Christmas special of a previous podcast, not this podcast.
Wait, what?
The previous one?
About with Void Trip, how Void Trip has has a bunch of background sort of art jokes, but it's never this kind of busy, I guess.
Yeah.
With it. Like,
isn't it?
It's there. There's something in like every panel to notice. Like, it takes me about like when they were coming out, it took me like twice as long to read an issue of Chew
Yeah.
than it did any other comic, because I'd spend about the same time I was reading a page to go through a panel after I'd read everything.
Yeah, and it's for dumb things like, I think the one in this that got me was, a clean kitchen is a happy kitchen.
I think Rob Guillory's art throughout is really excellent. Is that quite kind of, it makes it sound like it's bad, but it's kind of messy, cartoony style.
It's almost caricature.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
It's weird cartooning.
When you have his Tony's partner Mason Savoy, who is like an upside down triangle, like his shoulders are massive and his legs are about 2 inches long and tiny. He's got that real like old Warner Brothers sort of cartooning.
Yeah.
But I'm also glad that they managed that it's all Rob Guillory. I haven't read any of the latest series, but I understand he's not on it, and I just can't help but think it's going to lose a little something.
Yeah, I feel like as a team, John Layman and Rob Guillory are pretty perfect for this, and I think it's something I've read books by both of them after Chew, and so Rob Guillory's doing Farmhand at the moment, which feels like an extension of Chew in a lot of ways. And I think it benefits from having the art and the kind of wacky storytelling that we see in Chew, whereas John Layman's books, some of them I think I've found to be really good, like Outer Darkness. Has been great. And I know he's got a new series that's just come out in trade, which is The Man Who Effed Up Time, which speaks to me as just a premise, which I'm really looking forward to checking out. But I know stuff like Leviathan, which he did, which is about essentially kaijus destroying everything, should have appealed to me. But all I could think was, man, Rob Guillory should be drawing this book.
It's very difficult to kind of not think of them in the same breath and expect them to be together.
And don't get me wrong, I think they're both great creators independently. But I think you can see that Chew has probably defined the start of both of their creative comic booking.
Yeah, and that's not to take away from like the artist, like Afu Chan, I think is the artist on Outer Darkness.
Yes, it is.
Who does some really great work. I really love the look of that book.
Yeah, it is a really nice book, and it does completely suit the style. Man, I like Outer Darkness. Man, I'm easily distracted. But Chew's good.
It is, yeah. In conclusion, Chew is good.
One of the things that struck me on the reread, because I've not read this for a good couple of years, is basically every single issue like sets up a future arc of...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, when you realise how well planned out.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's one of those things I always wonder, like, is it really well planned out, or were they just like, hey, we'll just include this and maybe it'll matter?
Because it feels like they probably had a plan for the first like 5 or 6 volumes, and then
it just goes off the rails,
or at least had like a few loose plot ideas. And then kind of would figure out exactly how to tie them together later.
But that's something that's always... obviously, we see that, you know, there's a lot of love for Lost and Tarantino and throughout the series, and we have their pilot when they go to the Arctic Circle is Fred Lapidus, who's just a character from Lost, and we have Caesar, who is essentially Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. And it kind of made me think on this read through that is the real influence of shows like Lost or Pulp Fiction, that there are that many threads in play and they are all there, and maybe much like Lost has more plot lines than you can, I don't know, shake a drumstick at. that this is that level of
a KFC chicken drumstick.
That's right.
Like,
Other
how
brands are available if they want to sponsor us first.
how much did I miss with Chew having never watched an episode of Lost?
You know what? Probably not loads. There are subtle references, and then obviously blatant ones of just stealing their pilot. But I know there's stuff like the numbers from Lost make an appearance whenever they can, and
Yeah.
other such things. I'm fairly sure there's definitely references to Hurley at some point, but that could just be a Weezer reference. But yeah, there are definitely Lost references. I feel like you probably don't miss a lot, but I mean they do go to a mysterious island in like Volume 2, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, it's a bit late, but Matt, go and watch Lost, and if you come back to us you could do that in a night, right?
Can I actually? Okay, so two of my favorite musicians have done a Lost podcast where they talk about the episodes in no particular order,
Okay.
and have a large amount of musical segments. And one of the hosts disappears for several episodes. I could go and listen to that and hope that it gives me enough of an understanding.
I think the real trick here is that even if you watch all of Lost, I don't think it will give you enough of an understanding.
Okay. just send me some clips on YouTube's later, all right, hon?
I'll do you like a best of Lost compilation. I'll make you a Lost mixtape.
Cheers. So what other books were you were you looking at for this?
So there were a few, I'm not going to lie, and some of them are ruled out for reasons that will become obvious shortly. So one of the front runners was Royalty by Jeff Lemire, because I love it and it is perfection. You're welcome. I also had a couple of Johnny Cates books that I wanted to go at, stuff like Redneck and God Country. That, oh god, they're good. Ironically, I decided to not go with those because I didn't want to do an image book.
And look what happened.
Obviously works really well. And I feel like on some other podcast recently, I can't remember its name, we might have talked about Johnny Cates quite a lot. I don't know, is it?
No,
It's possible.
I also dabbled with basically every Quantum and Woody run. I just couldn't decide which one, and I think that's why I didn't go for that in the end, was I just couldn't pick one, and I felt bad making you read, like, you know, let's be honest, probably about 50 issues, because there's not that much Quantum and Woody. But
I'd have read it all.
You already have.
You've already read it all.
I know I've read a fair bit of it.
So there were a few different bits and pieces like that I think very much could have been in this slot, but choose good, yeah. And also Umbrella Academy was close to getting the pick until I realised how awkward it is to get, because Dark Horse don't let us share documents between each other because they hate us.
You.
Yeah.
That said, I also think you might all own Umbrella Academy.
I'm pretty sure I do.
Yeah, I do.
I've got it somewhere. But
Well,
I think you've mentioned it and Matt's mentioned it as well, and it's true for me that I kind of fell off comics for a bit, and when I was getting back into them, Chew was one of the very first ones.
Yeah.
I think it is just a good introduction to comics that these aren't your granddad's comics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, these aren't your granddad's comics. There's no Dan Dare in here anywhere.
Dennis the Who.
Roger the what?
None of that.
I do think that's very true, and I think this is, I think both this and Paper Girls are great introductions to non-mainstream books.
Yeah, in different ways. But
Very
Yeah.
different ways, but
And don't get me wrong, saying the Image isn't mainstream is like such a
that's
contradiction.
a lie.
yeah,
It's the most mainstream you can get without,
being Marvel or DC.
yeah,
I mean, let's be
without
frank,
being
in the world of
superhero.
comics, even mainstream is fairly piddly.
True. It's not the most mainstream of a niche.
Yeah.
like Image published Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hear some people know that, and some people are under the illusion that there is no Walking Dead, it's just a TV show.
And Zach's favourite.
I've heard
Spawn.
that rumour.
I've got some breaking news about Spawn, Will, but I feel like I should save it for off air.
Oh no!
You don't
No,
want to
you
do,
have-
want to do a whole new segment next episode.
Sorry. Breaking news.
Oh, you've done it, haven't you?
Go on, Zach.
All right. So, against my better judgment,
All the origins.
I bought Volume 1 of Spawn.
Oh no.
And you know what? I've had an okay time.
Is this the stuff with was it Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman? I can't remember who came in and wrote.
Nah, buddy. This is
About volume
Spawn.
2
This
or
is
3 that you start
where
getting them.
Cogliostro comes in.
I'm 92. I'm Todd McFarlane all the way. I'm Spawn Violator.
Spawn lives in an alley.
Oh yeah, he does. Under a pile of crap.
Has the countdown clock that counted down.
Yeah.
And then here we are, 200 issues later.
I say I was enjoying.
Man.
I say I've kind of liked it, but there are bits in it where the demon who's made a deal with Spawn monologues for like an issue, and all through that issue, which I read the other day, it was like, man, could this stop? He's just like telling me the premise of this book, and
It was Neil Gaiman. Sorry.
I mean, I'm pre-gaming. I'm McFarlane on McFarlane, which incidentally I think might be the name of his biography. And
Well, no,
Ah.
it
It
would
seems
be
likely.
McFarlane Publishing presents a Todd McFarlane product.
based on the
And
work of
Todd
Todd
Mc-
McFarlane.
A Todd McFarlane production.
Yeah.
But while it's aged horribly, I think there are some pretty interesting ideas, and there are times where I think, and it hurts, but I think Todd McFarlane might be a pretty okay artist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
he
Yeah.
defined, like, how Spider-Man's webs look.
yeah.
True.
Yeah. His
Yeah.
work on
Very
Spider-Man
true.
and Venom was pretty groundbreaking at the time. And yeah, I think that's why Spawn is a cool design. Like, just the look
God, yeah.
of Spawn is awesome. And I kind of get why there's always that thread to pull you back in, to trick you that it might be good this time.
So
don't
this
know
is
the
why
first-
I chose Spawn as my book. No,
I own the first 4 volumes of Spawn.
Spoilers.
I did what you did, but 3 more times.
I don't see me getting to issue 300, and in a previous podcast, in a previous life, I read Spawn 300, and I absolutely hated it because I just felt like I was being treated to something that I was too unaware to even conceive what it was talking about.
Yeah.
And I don't see me filling in the 299 issue gap to have understanding.
Well, you've started.
And that is the
Yeah.
first part of the problem, isn't it?
I remember the Spawn animated series being good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to prevent a balance for you, because unfortunately I don't think any of us are going to stand up for Spawn here,
No.
to have run for 300 issues and be an indie book, like, people must get something from it.
Yeah.
And
Some people.
it's impressive to be able to run that long of any singular book, I think. So props to Todd for that.
For keeping himself employed all these years.
Yeah. Being good at business.
It's going to confuse the hell out of people when I cut out big segments of this and it sounds like Will just suddenly started praising Todd McFarlane with no context.
Do it.
Directly after bagging on Liefeld.
Yeah, just like, bah. We can throw in some stuff about the other Image creators just to like have the even playing field of our views.
Mm.
Next episode, we rate the Image founders.
Oh man,
Okay. Number 1.
Jim Lee.
day and night.
Okay, you're wrong, but
All right, it's probably Silvestri, isn't it? But I can't tell you why.
okay. So shall we go on? Shall we get out of this hole? Shall we dig upwards to get out of this hole and go on to my book and dig a different hole?
Yeah, I'd like a new hole.
Ooh la la.
So I brought what is just a book, like a book that kind of introduced me to one of my favorite people working in comics of the last 15 years, which is Orc Stain by James Stokoe, with colours by James Stokoe and art by James Stokoe.
And lettering by
James Stokoe.
There we go.
It's a book. What is about orcs? Orcs do one thing. They fight. They wreck everything. They fight and just break stuff. They're just instinctively driven to break things.
Reliable.
And then they themselves break apart. Whatever sort of brings them together falls apart. They don't manage to cohere, and any achievements they make fall away. Their conquests collapse until the coming of the Orc Tsar. An orc who's managed to unify the tribes and the various orcish peoples under his banner, and is rapidly kind of making his way across the world, seeking fulfilling prophecy and seeking a great treasure, and possibly the end of the world. And to do this, he needs a key that is another orc, an orc called One Eye, who has the special power that he can actually just break anything. He can look at something and know its weakness. He can, and then break it, exploit it. He sees the fault lines in things.
Like Karnak.
Yes, like Karnak. And day to day, when we're introduced to him, he's living as a safe cracker and sort of general no good Nick, thief. And we're introduced to him breaking into a safe that also is a bear, and that bear also has a bird inside its skull that is an alarm that will wake up the bear to attack whoever's trying to break into it. This book rules.
End of pitch.
It's the problem with trying to sell Orc Stain in an audio medium. The problem with trying to sell almost anything that James Stokoe has done in audio is that so much of what makes his work amazing is his art. And to me, particularly, his work with colour. I love his colour palette. It changes between books, but it's there kind of at its strongest in Orc Stain, where everything is just all of these weird organic shades of whatever colour he's working with. unless something is like made of rock or wood, it looks like it's made of flesh. It looks of some kind. Everything looks like you'd touch it, it would have a pulse. Or it would kind of like have some sort of fleshy give, like it'd squish as you touch it. Like, it's weird and hard to kind of describe how incredible his art. His art is like these really busy, like, war scenes in like just the first sort of double page spread of like this numberless horde marching on these huge towers. And like all these various sort of like all these various kind of like types of like war regalia that people are wearing that are like some of which have huge like orc or monster penises draped across their shoulders as part of their decoration. It's so visually striking that like I cannot do it justice. Like I queued for 4.5 hours once to get a chance to go and like meet James Stokoe. There were 7 people in the queue, and it was 4.5 hours because he was the coolest dude and did like massive like in one case like an like it was like it might have been an A3 sketch for someone for free with ink. He is the best dude on top of everything else.
Some say part of Matt's soul is still in that queue.
Well, let's not say about the fact that like I was still in that queue 2 hours after my girlfriend had arrived.
And left.
And I fell victim to the sunken cost fallacy and was like, well, I can't leave the queue because then the 2.5 hours I put in will have gone to waste.
Hey, I'm proud of you. The longest I've queued at a con was for Emma Rios, and that was like 3 hours. So I feel you. There's a point where you question yourself.
Oh, constantly. But I was fairly sure I'd never get to see him again. So it was totally worth it. Yeah, I love this book. I love like the world building that goes into it. Like, it's there in the trade, at least. That like there's all this great little back matter that explains things about like the world. Like the currency is like called Gronch, which is where you like dry and lacquer the penises of like dead enemies of yours, and then cut it into coins, and it gives you a step-by-step guide into how to create Gronch.
Make no mistake, this book is exceedingly phallic.
One of my favourite things about this book isn't even in the book, it's in the description on Comixology, which is retailer warning, may not be suitable for all ages.
Really?
Correct.
I don't know if it's issue 2 or 3 that's included in the description, and I just thought that was like a 5-star.
That's a little late.
Yeah, it's like you've already started, but it suggests that somebody's kid picks this up, and the parents went, "Oh, holy shit, what's this?"
Yeah, like Image received some complaints.
There were some strongly worded letters sent, and they
On a
decided.
On a very brief tangent, am I right that Monstrous, when it first came out, won awards for like YA?
Yes,
books?
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
And it's full of like, maybe not the most graphic, but it's got nudity in it. It's got loads of bad language in it. It's got fairly gory violence in it. I thought, what part of this is for a
That's what kids love, Will.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
I'll take it back.
It's what plants crave.
But I agree with you wholeheartedly, Matt. I think the art in this is absolutely top tier.
And he's only gotten better if you look at like in the last year or two, he put out a book, a little mini comic called Sobek, which you should definitely check out. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that at least every issue has one like point in it, one page or one panel that is just extraordinary. Like such an inventive bit of art, even within the comics medium.
Yeah, like it never does anything incredible with like panel structure.
No,
but what's in the panels is cool and clever, and like all the weird kind of organic like machines.
Yeah,
like the soda cans that are like screaming at them,
begging not to be opened and die.
Yeah,
but I think that's a real nice reflection, because it's a story about orcs instead of like any of the other races that do get a mention but barely get seen. That they're a kind of cruel and brutish people, and their world absolutely reflects that. There's the bit where they're firing like explosive arrows, and to make them explosive, they strap these sort of living clams on them.
Yeah.
And it's just that idea that everything they do, even the simplest things like drinking from a can, includes something dying, like something brutal has to happen, because that's just their culture, and all of that as a kind of design for this world. I think were just excellent.
Yeah, it's weird and like funny in that regard. Like it just throws like it's not a comedy book, but it is so over the top violent.
Yeah,
and stuff that like it's like that sort of it's Tom and Jerry, but you see the consequences of the violence.
Yeah.
And like like there's great little things like when Bowie and Zazu, like they're these sort of they're this sort of independent faction of the whole thing. Seemingly, one is like a
swamp witch,
like a swamp witch poison, poison sort of brewer. And the other is her like living cape, parasite symbiote thing, made of hair? Question mark. And like there's some really fun, inventive things done with them, and like watching the way that people's like bodies react to her sort of poisons and tinctures and stuff, like watching people's bodies turn into just pools of goo with eyes just springing out of them, and watching Zazu turn into a like Gurren Lagann scale drill in one panel is it's so cool.
Yeah,
like, the story itself is fun and interesting, like, and the dialogue is great, but it's such a visual experience.
Yeah.
I think in that way it's a comic that kind of gets to have its cake and eat it, in that it's the sort of the overarching story is epic, but One Eye's story is quite small and quite intimate.
Yeah.
It gets to have like real jeopardy for some of the characters, and yet, as you say, it is funny and it is kind of goofy, and it sort of straddles all the lines perfectly, and I think it nails kind of both ends of the spectrum.
And it's a very fully realized world. It is like, because it's so visual, you feel like you're sort of stepping into that weird orcish world. It's quite immersive, probably because of how good the art and the colouring is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good book.
Despite it being a mad fancy, it's kind of believable, and it's easy to extend your imagination into it.
So, Will, best book.
Yeah, you picked the best book.
No.
No, I know. In this instance, I'll say I didn't necessarily pick the best book. No, yeah, so like the other books, I was kind of toying with. Like there were, like it was between this and a few others. It was between this and Infinite Kung Fu, which also rules, but is 459 pages, and none of you have time for that at the moment, even with like lockdown and stuff. Like, but it is great, and I suggest everyone goes out and read it. Box Office Poison, like a 2001 like semi biographic, I think. Book that's 600 pages. The Nameless City, which is just a really great like young adult series that's like very inspired by Avatar, but does a great job of creating its own world as well. And Box Brown's Andre the Giant book, like all really good books, but I just want more people to talk about James Stokoe more often, and like it was the same like that, and that was the same reason I would have gone for Infinite Kung Fu, because Kagan MacLeod is incredible, but just doesn't put out enough work to get talked about as much as he should. Same with James Stokoe. So, Angela.
Yes.
Spotlight falls upon ye.
Hooray!
Can you stand up to its fiendish glare?
Well, we're about to find out. I might need a parasol. So, the book that I picked is Descender, which is by Jeff Lemire, and Dustin Nguyen did the art. Jeff Lemire's obviously the writer, should have specified. We'll move on. And Steve Wands, who was the letterer and designer. I don't know what he designed, but whatever he... Good for him. It's like production. We've no idea what it means. So, Descender, in a nutshell, is the story of a little boy robot called Tim 21, who wakes up 10 years after there's been a catastrophic event in the galaxy. Giant robots called Harvesters came along and basically wiped out billions of people for reasons unknown. And most of the robots were then all rounded up by scrappers and destroyed in various ways and means. Tim 21 escaped. He was on a little colony with a little boy called Andy, who was his human brother, and his mum, and they had a little dog robot called Bandit, who's adorable.
I love Bandit.
Bandit's the best, apart from Driller. We'll get on to Driller in a minute.
Driller's great.
So Tim 21 wakes up. He can't find Andy's disappeared. Most of the colonists are dead. He doesn't know what's happened to them or his mother. He's all upset. But he has Bandit with him. And then some scrappers come along, and they obviously want to scrap him because he's a robot. And they run into the mines where they find Driller, who is a real killer, is Driller. Meanwhile, back with the... I don't know if we can call them humans, because they're kind of not. We'll call them the UGC, because that's who they are. So there's a Dr. Kwon who sort of invented modern robotics, and he is called upon by General Nagoki, and he's brought by Captain Telza and her little friend Tullis, and they have to go and find Tim 21. They've got news that Tim 21's active, and Tim 21's codex, that is the base code of, it's like the DNA of robots, matches the Harvesters. So here they have the opportunity to work out who the Harvesters are, maybe have a defense against them should they ever come back. and that basically sets it up. So then they have to go and rescue Tim from the Scrappers, and then they get caught by the Scrappers, and many plot lines ensue because it's a very long series. The reason I picked it, so Jeff Lemire is one of my favourite writers. He could literally write 2 stick figures on a paper bag, and I'd probably declare it one of the greatest comics of all time. So there's that.
Okay, so you heard it here first. Don't trust Angela talking about Jeff Lemire comics.
Seriously, don't.
Because it could just be a paper bag with stick figures on it.
I'm expecting him to publish that with Image next year. So he's one of my favourite writers. But also, I empathise a lot with characters who are robots. You may have noticed that from my earlier comment regarding battle droids. And Tim 21's so adorable. And I remember seeing the first issue because it has a very iconic cover. It's also on the cover of the first trade, where you have Tim with a lot of the sort of human skin and bits sort of stripped back. So he clearly looks like a little robot boy looking up with a moon in the background. And it's just a really evocative image. And I was like, ooh, what's this? And that was issue 1. And it's one that I have in singles and trade and other forms. But it's one of those that I wanted to read every single issue, and I reread it. The art in it is so different to anything else that I've seen. It's almost like watercolors. It's some of it's really minimalist. There's a lot of white, particularly for the UGC scenes. They're all sort of really white and clinical.
Yeah, and all the factions have their own color scheme.
Yeah.
And aesthetic.
It gives you that. It gives you a sense of being alien without being obviously alien. It's quite subtle, and I like that a lot. And also just the characterization. All the characters have their own little arcs throughout the course of Descender. Obviously, we focus on Tim because he's sort of our little POV character for a lot of it. But like you see, even Bandit gets sort of development. Driller has some of the greatest development of any robot character in any comic ever. In that,
of any killer mining equipment.
Yeah, any killer mining equipment. Because I didn't think by the end of it, I would be crying over the fate of a driller, a mining drilling robot that's killed people, and yet I empathise very strongly with that, murderous drilling, killing robot. Bless him.
Maybe we should take her a moment to remember Scoops.
Yes.
Driller's original partner.
Driller's partner, yeah. I mean, that issue damn near killed me, that did.
Oh.
That was just so emotional. It was like, oh, God. But even Dr. Kwon, because Dr. Kwon's kind of a bit of an asshole through a lot of it. Yeah. But, he has an arc. Tells us a really excellent female character. And she's really interesting because her dad, spoiler alert, it's not a spoiler, General Nagoki is her dad, so she's been brought up in this very sort of almost militaristic, even though he's like, call me dad, she still calls him General. And she's sort of the typical military UGC person, and then she grows. So yeah, it's just really good. The art is absolutely wonderful. The writing's really good. The characters are really good. And it's one of those books that when I was sat there reading it, I thought, this is why I read comics. This is a comic to prove why I read comics, because this is the medium to tell this story in. And it works so well. And it's really pretty. And in conclusion, it's an excellent book.
It's
I agree.
Best book.
The best book. It still is my favourite. I mean, it was published in 2015. 5 years later, I still love it.
Yeah, I'd not read it before reading it for the podcast. I'd meant to, because I used to read like a lot of Lemire stuff. I still try, but like we've said before, very long list of books. And yeah, like I was somehow, despite the cover for the first issue, or like for the trade at least, sorry, showing Tim's like skin kind of coming away in panels and stuff, when it does the reveal when he's like spooked by Bandit and you see it happen, I was like, oh, somehow I'm very, very dumb, and was like, oh yeah, he's a robot.
Surprise! I really like that bit where he's startled by Bandit, because it does clearly show this is not a human child.
Yeah, and it does it very well. Where, like you say, if you'd not seen the cover and you didn't know, or you were me, and just a little not great at the uptake, it does a great job of kind of, it doesn't feel unnatural with it. You just go, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense, and fits. Like, I just really liked it, and like Driller, he's great. He just made me think.
So good.
He made me think of robots in the Judge Dredd, the Robot Wars. The Robot War, sorry. Mega Epic, where you've got like you've got
Call Me Kenneth, and like the Heavy Metal Kid and stuff, who are just like massive. Like Call Me Kenneth is just was like a carpentry robot. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, or something like that, and he's just just starts hitting them, and like then these giant construction robots. And I was like, yeah, Driller's gonna go and fight Judge Dredd. But Driller's sweet.
Driller cares. Driller cares.
He doesn't have the best processor or software, but
no,
it's got a good. I want like whatever a robot has that's like a heart. Like he's a good one. He's very sweet. Even if he does kill people with drills.
Yeah.
I guess my first point is Captain Telsa quickly became Captain Tesla, and that remained the same throughout the read for me. It's only now that I remember I'm just saying it wrong.
There's a whole bit with Quan where he's like, so, Captain Tesla, and she's like, it's Telsa. Oh yeah, right, so, Captain Tesla.
Yeah,
so not even Quan gets it, and she's actually telling him the whole time. So
despite that, it remained Tesla. But I think Bandit is one of the best versions of what a like robotic pet might be like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Essentially, just looking like a sort of early 2000s iMac.
Yeah.
With wheels on the back, tiny little paws at the front, and then just this screen that shows rudimentary sort of emojis and punctuation.
Oh, so cute.
Oh,
and he barks.
Oh, the like onomatopoeia joke when he's barking and it's saying like fra.
Yeah.
I just thought, what is this? What's going on? And then he's like, oh, you're broken. Turns it around and then it's going arf arf. And you go, That's a good comics joke right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
really
one
is.
of those jokes that needs to be in a visual medium.
Yeah.
Wouldn't work any other way.
And, like it's really well. It's a really interesting science fiction universe. It's like, whilst it does some very kind of standard things, I do like the Harvesters. Like that's just, it's just like they're there, then they're just gone.
Leaving destruction in their wake.
Yeah, but just almost immediately gone, and no one knows why. No one knows why they appeared, and no one knows why they left.
I think it's a pretty solid mystery to build a premise around. It's pretty solid.
Yeah,
sorry, buddy, you go ahead.
No, after you.
I was just going to say, while it's probably not the most kind of original concept of the idea of robots having feelings and being slaves and overthrowing humanity, or in this case, sort of being destroyed after people got too scared, but it does feel like almost a perfection of that genre of storytelling, as where it's it's been done before, but maybe not as good as this. Certainly not in a comics medium, I don't think.
No.
Yeah,
obviously I'm referring to AI, that great movie.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
of the characters are, like I said, just they feel really like Tim feels like both a child and a robot in the way that he's playing the part of a child, but like isn't he knows he's playing the part. When and people keep constantly almost referring to like the people he was given to as like his mum or his brother, and stopping themselves, and he's like, yeah, no, don't worry, I know I'm not like actually a child, and like I know I'm a machine who was made for this and stuff, rather than like, but he's not distanced enough from it to actually not still act and feel like a child most of the time.
Yeah, despite being aware of it, it still is programming.
Yeah, he doesn't kind of, like, most of the time he's not really working against that, and it's really kind of sad in some ways to watch that, like, he knows these things and he's got the emotional distance kind of to be able to say, oh no, don't worry, I know that like I'm not this, but not the capacity to like he can't like emotionally distance from this because he was programmed to not emotionally, like, to not be able to, and to invest and to mimic and stuff in a way that is supposed to convince himself as much as anything. It's really kind of sad.
I mean, it's Jeff Lemire, you know.
Yeah.
It's gonna be sad.
I think. Okay, whilst we have obviously touched on Jeff Lemire being good at the sad in the past, and will no doubt touch on it in the future, I think really beyond the sadness lurks probably some of the best character work in comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying about with Tim and like Dr. Kwon.
Yeah.
Like, I've only read the first trade, but he seems like a fascinating character.
He's a real fascinating son of a bitch.
And charlatan.
Yeah.
But I like that even in the first trade, all those characters, Tim, Bandit, Driller, Dr. Kwon, Telza, etc. They're all rounded characters, which to get that in a first trade, to have them that well rounded that early on, I think does speak to the fact that Jeff Lemire, I mean, you see it in his other books as well, but he has top-notch characterization. He just nails it every time. And, the fact that you've got a little robot that's essentially a pet dog actually come through as his own standalone proper character, that's not easy.
He does stick to his usual kind of family themes.
Yeah.
With obviously Tim and his kind of human companions. At least he considers them family. And you've basically just got all these kind of displaced people.
You've got lost people who...
Yeah, you kind of form this odd family unit between them. But Lemire always loves getting some family feels in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And if you're good at something, do it as often as possible.
That's the mantra I live by.
Did you have any other choices for this, Angela, or was it?
Well,
how many 90s Valiant books?
They were on there. So there was a Jeff Lemire list.
Yeah, of course.
Naturally.
Yeah, of course. So Black Hammer was up there. Fist bump with Will. Also his run on Bloodshot, speaking of Valiant, but modern Valiant, Bloodshot Reborn, which to my mind is the absolute best that character's ever been. and will be
Yeah.
because he's no longer on that book. Thank you, Valiant. Anyway, for bringing it back in a bad way. There was a Dark Horse title on there, Cryptocracy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but because it's Dark Horse and they don't let us have nice things. But I like that one because it's weird mythology and also a talking bear. So why not? That was on there. And then I thought, Archer and Armstrong, either a new run or, I could have thrown the 90s run in there. It's a thing.
It's gorgeous art. It's got gorgeous art. Like, that's one thing it has.
It's got that. It's got a lot of dated things.
Yes, that too.
It's so dated. But yeah, so those were my other possible choices. There you go.
Some good choices.
Yeah.
And in conclusion,
Speaking of good choices,
yeah.
I've got nowhere to segue to.
No. So
Thanks for listening. Thanks for choosing to listen to us ramble for the last however long it's been.
I think
That's a good choice.
I think this has been a good little intro to who we are as comic book people, though.
Yeah.
Our comic mad ramblings.
And that's what the people want, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't know what the people want. I just assumed this was probably it, right?
I mean, and don't worry, Zach and I will be back with our second part of the Mr. Saint Nick discussion next week.
It's not really a discussion, it's just us pitching what the sequels could be.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Mr. Saint Nick. What a way to end the year. So, I think this more or less brings us to the conclusion of our introductory episode. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I would like to thank everyone for joining us, both as co-hosts and potential listeners out there in the real world. I hope everyone's got enough of a grasp on who we are and will join us going forward in our weekly segments where we'll be doing trade reviews, film. I was going to say film reviews, but it's really more dissections of films that no one wants reviewing.
Yeah,
that's a niche that needs filling.
Taking a real close look at comic book films that most people wouldn't look at
I've already
in any
dismissed.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll be doing our monthly roundups of independent stuff that we quite like from whatever month, or don't quite like and have forced you to read. Which
I mean, generally we try to pick things that we think we'll like.
Yeah,
that we think could use more attention.
And it's not always going to be image related.
No,
it might be White Noise Collective.
Yeah.
I think it's been an odd one that we've gone all image this week, and I think there was a lot of chance for us to all go in very different directions. Maybe we'll do a catch-up intro episode in a few months where we'll all choose a different publisher.
Well, that'll give you all time to read Infinite Kung Fu.
That'll work well.
If we start now, we can be finished by June. So next week we will be back with a Manchester Comic Book Club tie-in, and we'll be discussing Heathen. I don't know who'll be joining me, so that'll be a surprise for us all. And as our comic book club meeting will be online still, if you do want to join us, please hit us up on Twitter at Mank Comic Book or Facebook at Manchester Comic Book Club. Also, follow us on Twitter at Bigger Than Capes. We also have a website, which is biggerthancapes.com. And well, that's all the social media I think we actually have right now. But
we're working on it.
Hey,
they might bully me to get on Twitter someday.
Still working on that.
I'm just going to make a Twitter account and pretend to be Matt.
You can't do any worse than I would.
Exactly. So just to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, who are Travelling Man. They're based in Manchester, York, Newcastle and Leeds. And
in this urban hellscape that we now inhabit, in the hell world of 2020, shortly to become 2021, you find yourself stuck indoors. But what's this? You also require comics. Why? What if there was some place on the internet where comics could be acquired. Why, hark, there it is. Travelingman.com. Delivered to your address.
This is also true. So if you guys want comics, you want mangas, you want board games, you want magic cards,
Nerdery.
Yeah.
miscellaneous nerdery, they got you.
Nerd and dice.
Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous. Pretty sure that's how you say it, Matt. Miscellaneous.
Saying it with like a 90s like Pauly Shore type inflection doesn't make it any more true.
That's worked in the past.
So we've been Zach, Angela, Will, and Matt, and we will continue to be. This has been Bigger Than Capes, and remember that comics is bigger than
Bigger than
capes.
Than
Capes.
capes.